Alrighty. So, jumping back in, Be'ezus Hashem, to our study of Anu B'Koyach, a couple of weeks ago, and I'm happy in a certain way that we had a couple of weeks because it took me a couple of weeks to contemplate and really think deeply about what we learned a couple of weeks ago about the word Yachid. All right, we had a whole hour just on the word Yachid as it relates to Hashem. We're up to the stanza in Anu B'Koyach, Yachid geya la'amcha p'nei, zochrei kedushasecha. Yachid geya. What does Yachid mean? How do we translate it? How would you translate it? Unique, singular, right?
The one, right?
So we understood there are different ways of understanding what this means, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yachid, singular. And the way that we explained it very deeply is that from the standpoint of Hashem being Yachid, that means it isn't just He's singular, meaning there is no other God. It means that in the aspect of Hashem being Yachid, the only one, it means that everything else is seen as being included in Him. Right? So that means from the standpoint of Hashem's being Yachid, all of His creations are also included within that category. He's singular because on that level, He's infinite, and there is no room for finitude, for anything limited. Anything limited is going to be within His infinity. All there is Ein Od Milvado, is just HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's basically how we understood the category of Yachid, which includes all other categories. And it's a different way than how we would understand it. Basically, that Hashem is Yachid because He's unique, and there's no being like Him. It's much, much deeper than that. Yeah. And that's what we learned last time.
With an extra yud.
Yeah.
Because it's everything. It's everything connected.
Everything.
Hashem is everything connected, so it's really only one. It's just an illusion that it's all separate.
That's right. It's the godliness in everything. That if you drill down, deep, thanks for coming, deep beyond the surface of everything, you realize theologically, philosophically, everything is just Elokus. Okay, so now we run into a big question. Because we're trying to travel now from Yachid Geya. We also spoke about Hashem's pride. We said it's not arrogance, right? Because it's emes. We spoke about how arrogance is connected to sheker. So when something tries to lift itself in a way that it doesn't, it's not emes, that it ought to be lifted. But by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not a arrogance, chas v'shalom kiviyachal, it's just the mitzias. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yachid, right? So there's a certain pride that naturally comes along with that. So what's the kasha? The kasha is, and we touched on this very briefly, one of the Chaver brought it up last time, what's the shaykhis between Yachid Geya and La'amcha Pnei? You remember, I think it was Rabbi Yaakov, I think he's out of town, where he mentioned, so where do we fit in? Right? Where do we fit in the context of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being Yachid? Because we do perceive ourselves as existing. So how does that fit in, especially in the stanza? It's not just another stanza, it's in the same stanza, Yachid Geya, and immediately we make a reference to La'amcha Pnei. So let's learn inside the Heiliger of Reuven Sasson. So there's a lot to get through. I'm going to read it relatively quickly so we can see the content. I'm going to do less talking of my own Linadar this time. When we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yachid Geya, as the singular one, we are referring to the loftiest conception of godliness, where at that level, Ein Od Milvado, again, doesn't just mean there's no other God like Him, it means there's nothing else. Everything is wrapped up in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Elokus in His infinity. It's a reference to that greatness, that elevation of Hashem that has no end. And we are also wrapped up in that element. Certainly Am Yisrael, along with everything else, we fit into that category. So after we make reference to this elevated bechina, this aspect of Hashem, and we make a reference to the transcendence of Hashem, the holiness of Hashem, that's lifted beyond all the lower worlds which perceive themselves as being separate, or as potentially being experienced as separate. That aspect of Hashem that's, like we said, mizga'eh, that's elevated, lifted up beyond anything. We immediately go ahead and request something that seems to be the exact opposite, the contrast of this aspect of Yachid Geya, which is La'amcha Pnei, turn to Am Yisrael. So he says, wait a second, Atayar Geya, this terminology, this descriptive term, Geya, Moiral Tenuas Kfoid HaMelech Lamala. It's referring to the kavod of Hashem that's well beyond any created being. His yachzus b'mekayris hakodesh al yoinim le'ela, like we said, it's the highest singularity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the category that includes all categories. There's nothing else. Einoid movadai. The davka azeno imrim l'char davar afuch. And then we say the opposite, la'amcha panei. Relate to a created nation in the physical world. What's going on here? Shu inyan peniya lamata, that in that aspect, Hashem should turn to Am Yisrael in the lowest realm, the created realm, olam asiyah, el amay hanimtza b'tachtoinim, to his nation that is found, that exists in the lowest realm. Sha'amcha ukinu liYisrael b'mitziyusim ba'olam hazeh. When we refer to Amcha, it's a reference. We didn't say l'knesses Yisrael Pnei, because that would refer to the spiritual source of Am Yisrael, which we could understand as being, bad connected to Hashem up there, so to speak.
Yachid.
Right, in a way of yichud, intimacy. But over here we say la'amcha Pnei. Where are we? The Am, Dafka in this world. This Ein Melech B'loi Am is used as a terminology to understand why Hashem needed to create this world, because He needed an Am. Right? What's the Am? Is the nation? Is in the Olam HaTachtoin. Dafka Tachtoin. Amcha Hukino, separation. Right, exactly. Oimamos, Gechalam Oimamos, that's the Balatanya. Right? Separated. It refers to you and me just struggling through the complexities of our physical lives. So it's very difficult to understand. That we want Hashem to relate to us. We use this terminology of removal from this physical world, the highest aspect of Hashem. When we come to ask Hashem for mercy, we preface this on upoinim Hashem b'kinoi rachamim. So we begin with terminology that relates to the midah of rachamim. Kamay avinu av harachama, and then we say what connects that. Hamarachim rachim aleinu. Once we refer to that midah of Hashem that's related to our bakasha, we awaken the aspect of Hashem's mercy. He should relate to us in a way of mercy. And in the aspect of this, hislabshus anu mamshichim umavakshim sheyizgale. Why we relate? Thank you so much for coming. Right, anu mamshichim umavakshim. We have sheets over there. In this aspect, we're saying, Hashem, reveal your rachmanas b'poyal. And then we make the request, Rachim aleinu v'sein b'lebeinu bina, have mercy on us. So it would make sense if we're asking for mercy. That's why we're related to Hashem as being the Merachim. V'loy matzanu, we're a little bit lower than halfway toward the end of the line. V'loy matzinu, can point in the place. Shkoyach, there you go. Imagine if we come to Hashem asking for mercy, and before we say Hashem, have mercy on us, we refer to Him as Elokim, right? The powerful one, the one that runs the world with din. It doesn't fit. She'inanu Aimrim Elokim Rachim Aleinu wouldn't fit. We refer to Hashem in His midah of severity, have mercy on us. Which aspect do you mean to refer to? Gibar v'takif Rachim Aleinu, powerful, strong one, have mercy on us. She'ilu Te'ari Adin. Because these terms describe Hashem's midas hadin. Va'anu ma'urim ma'isam. We refer to those midas when we ask Hashem to do justice in the world, and to have nakama on the enemies, and things like that. So the bottom line is, right? When we refer to Hashem, we are trying to refer to Him in a way that's going to be related to the bakasha, to the request that we have. So here's the question. Eina muvan. Ma'adua anu painim la'Hashem b'tay'arei hisurim emusai v'yisalusami al kol havaya. Why is it that in the beginning of this stanza of Anu B'Koach, we refer to Hashem Yachid Geya in the aspect of His being completely removed from any aspect of the created world in such a way that in that sense, nothing was ever created because everything is Elokus. Everything is godliness, even though we experience it as being real and physical, time and space and so on and so forth. Yachid Geya. And then we make a request that seems to be the opposite of that. La'amcha Pnei. Have a relationship with us in the lowest realm. Which one is it?
Why is it afachas? Why?
Because la'amcha panei refers to me and you as we are, not in our spiritual aspect, being created, living under time and space. So we make a reference to the most transcendent concept of Hashem, where he has nothing to do with the world, and it's still by him considered like the world wasn't ever created, then have a relationship with us in the created realm. It doesn't seem to fit.
Like asking Einstein to teach 1 + 1 to year 1.
Right, something like that. So even though it's, yes, I mean, it makes sense because it's still within the category of math, but like, you know.
And to say, oh, we're going to bring the top black belt to us, 10 dan, to teach us the first step of karate.
Something, right, something like that.
Wasted.
Right, and infinitely more. Because it's not just that he's so beyond, so you can't have a relationship with us. It's that in the aspect of his being, Yachid Geya, we just don't exist. Meaning, referring to Hashem as the singular one in the way that we learned, it means that he includes everything else. So in that sense, you can't refer to a created being, because you just made reference to the bechina, to the aspect in which there is no created being.
Because that connotes separation.
That's right. Right.
Right.
And la'amcha refers to where's he turning? To the lowest creative, like the physical world. You just said Yachid. There is no physical world on that level. So it seems to be a contrast. We should have made reference to the way that Hashem relates to the lower realm. One second. Where's the other? I think I left out one line. Okay. So some kind of terminology. Yeah, I guess I cut out a line. B'yosei lamata to the created world. And that would make more sense. Okay. Zochrei kedushasecha. Shechina, yeah, exactly. To refer to the way that Hashem could be experienced in the physical world. La'amcha pnei. So he's here. So relate to us. Okay. Zochrei kedushasecha, or the boirei, right? The creator have a relationship with your creations. What's Yachid Geya la'amcha pnei? So he says the answer is the next two words. Zochrei kedushasecha. We refer to Am Yisrael as the nation that remembers your holiness. What does this mean? Hatshuva l'davar, the answer to this question, Remuza is hinted to b'sayfa shal pasuk at the end of the stanza. Shehu asiba, which gives the reason shebeschusa yifna Hashem eleinu. It gives the reason that we should merit that Hashem should turn to us. V'hu masha anu mis'aimim, and this is what it means that we end this stanza ba'imrim. Zochrei kedushasecha. We are the nation that remembers your holiness. Zochrei kedushasecha, remembers your holiness. Anupainim la'Hashem v'karim Yachid Geya. We refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu again on that incredibly elevated, lofty level, Yachid Geya. U'mevakshim imenu, and then we say, again, something that seems to be hafuch, la'amcha panei, have a relationship with people in the lowest realm, in the olam ha'asiyah. U'madua tifna la'amecha. What's the bridge between those two things? Ki heim zochrei kedushasecha. Because we are called the nation that is zochrei, we remember kedushasecha. In these two words, those who remember your holiness, it hints to this that Hashem turns to his nation, who are found experiencing creation as creation in the lower realms of existence. Even though, like we said, he's Yachid Geya, and uplifted beyond anything, because they're those who remember his holiness. What does all this mean? In order to really understand this, obviously we have to understand Mahu Zochrei Kedushasecha. What does this mean to be those who remember God's holiness? Once we understand this, with the help of Hashem, we're going to be able to understand Madua Yifna Hashem Eleinu Afshu Yachid Geya. Why Hashem, even in the aspect of singularity, should be relating to us. The Adarabba. And not only that, it's because Hashem is Yachid, as we're going to learn, dafka, from that aspect we deserve for him to turn to us in the lowest realm. We're specifically using this terminology. So now we're going to understand this.
It's like in Kippur.
Now we're going to understand, yeah.
It's like in Kippur, we say Hashem Elokim, we bring him down into this world, into the sukkah, to be with us. Like from the highest level possible, go and sit in a
Right.
hut,
Right, but over there it's easier because Yud Ke Vav Ke, Hu Ha'Elokim, Elokim is Gematria Teva. It refers to the created natural world.
Right.
And that's the secret to say that really there's Yud Ke Vav Ke is also present with us, in the level of Elokim.
Right. So this is
But we need a bridge. We need a
Right.
bridge between Yachid Geya, which is even beyond that, and La'amcha Pnei. So he says, Reishis call the first thing Aleinu Lahaschel Asad Azikarin. What does it really mean to remember? What's the mystical depth of memory? Memory is an incredibly deep thing. What is it to remember? Because time is an illusion. Hashem is beyond time. There is a realm where past, present, and future is just a total illusion. Everything just is. We can't grasp that because we live underneath the context of time. And the minutes tick by, and the hours tick by, and days, and weeks, and months, and years, and decades, and centuries. We don't know the future, but we are able to recall the past. What's the depth of that memory? He says we've already discussed this in other places. He brings the other places in his writings where you can look into this concept more. He says now we're just going to say this very briefly, which we should read with a bit of suspicion from a person who wrote a 500-page book on Ahava. When he says Ksara, he's not exactly the master of Kitzur. But he says like this, Lamaisa, Hazikaran hu davar pnimi va'amok. Memory, the capacity to remember, is something very, very inward and very, very deep. Beroivad hagalui, on the revealed level, on the most external level of experience, on a makirim as hazikarin, like how do we think of what memory is? Kema'agar hanimtza b'moicha shel adam. We have somewhat of a storage bank in our brain, somewhere inside, in some part of our brain, beroivad hates moda, on the level of the subconscious, davar sh'adam choyshe by beregazeh, because what a person is thinking in this moment, lo shayach le'mashu zochrei isai, is not remembering it. He's thinking about it. He's experiencing it. When I'm drinking, I'm not using my memory. It's an experience I'm having in the present moment. Hazikaron, memory means shayach, is relating to l'roivad shenister be'imke hamachshava. We tap into the subconscious level. The memory is not all the time functioning. I'm able to wake it up if I choose to access that element of my being. And when I think about memories, I'm tapping in to something deeper than what I'm experiencing right now, because it's hidden. That experience is that I'm not having that experience right now. But it's like drilling beyond the illusion of time to somehow tap into the subconscious part of me that in some way is still having that experience. It's a deeper hidden realm. It's a deeper part of me, like our memories become a part of us. Science, and specifically psychology, is still discovering the lifelong impacts of children's experiences that become built into their subconscious, even though they might not know it. Tiny memories that they might not even be able to recall. It has an impact on the way that they think, on the way that they experience associations, right? Phobias that might come from just a small stereotypes, right? Ways of thinking, all molded and shaped by childhood experiences, which we'd have to say are deeper than the experience that a person has in the moment, because the experience that they're having in the moment is life. Sub-life is the realm of memory. The realm of memory. Let's just see how he unfolds it. A thing that a person is experiencing, so he's not remembering it. Memory is the layer of our thinking that's beyond our current experience. When I'm able to tap into that which doesn't exist right now, and I'm able to bring it out, menahelem, from being in a state of concealment within our subconscious, el gilui hamachshava, and then I can recall it, and I bring it out of that hidden, what's it called, like in computers, like the hard drive, right? Being able to bring it out, his zachrus. That's memory. Kayotze b'davar. So he says similarly, davar chada shenoida la'adam ena kasher lezikarin. Something new that you learned. You're not remembering it. You're reading it because you never knew it. You're reading it for the first time.
Is it? Is it not?
What do you mean? Oh, because the Malach already taught us everything. Okay, so let's say something not in Torah, right?
Okay.
Where it's clearer. It's something you once knew. It's not something new. So the opposite is something that's clear in front of you. You're not remembering it. It's an experience you're currently having. To remember, to recall, is something that was hidden. Even sometimes memories need to be awoken. You can have this experience when you hear a song that you didn't hear in a very long time. It can bring you back to a certain time in your life, or you smell a smell, right? Smells is very connected to machshava. And all of a sudden, it's like, where was that in my head? Where was it? I wouldn't have thought of that otherwise. Maybe I forgot it for decades. And then all of a sudden, I'm back. I'm back. And I remember where it was hidden. The memory extracts hidden experiences that are in the subconscious and brings them out to the level of revelation. That's the job of memory. It's that level that's hidden within the person and it binds our conscious thinking with the storage house of subconscious memories. Nimsa, so it emerges zikarin hu amagar hanister shalamachshava. It's the hidden treasure house of thought. So what does this mean in a spiritual sense? If this is what our capacity for memory is when we experience it in the lived experience of being a human, we've learned many times in the past that from the Kabbalistic or Pnimius HaTorah understanding, we don't have experiences that symbolize spiritual truths. I mentioned this in a number of shiurim recently. It's not that I have a right hand, and because I have a right hand that's very powerful, and by most people the right hand is more powerful than the left hand, so it symbolizes a spiritual concept of power. So that there are psukim, Yimincha Hashem nedar v'koyach. No. That's the niglet-oriented way of understanding depth. It's still deeper than just a stam thinking I have a hand because I have a hand. Something deep. Oh, my hand symbolizes a spiritual truth. But from the Kabbalistic standpoint that sees the true world not as being the physical world, it's the illusionary world. In Kabbalah, the true world is the code, not the front end appearance of the app. It's the code. That's the reality. So it's hafuch. It works the opposite way. I have a right hand because in the spiritual realm there's a spiritual code that becomes my right hand. And that's why I have a right hand, and that's why I have 5 fingers, and that's why these 5 fingers have 28 prakim. Every single detail and aspect of the lines on our hands and how they're positioned doesn't symbolize spiritual truth. It is spiritual truth manifested. It's a completely different way of looking at the world. So it's the same thing with memory. He's not saying that, now the human being has a memory and there's got to be something deeper about that. So what does that mean in the spiritual realm? It's the opposite, right? What is the concept of memory, beruchnius, that becomes the human being's capacity to remember in the physical world? Because we're tzelem elokim. So what does this mean vis-a-vis our source code that is encoded and becomes the front end, so to speak, experience of our humanity? Because this is all a bit of a VR illusion.
Like in the olden days, the movies, you guys were all not born, but you had the film, and the light went into the film, there was a picture on the film, and that's what you saw on the screen.
Projection.
The projection.
Yeah.
So
anything.
right? So it's not that, that image is there, so it must come. Really, the image is here. And
it's being
because
projected.
it's here,
Beautiful.
it's been projected there.
Beautiful. That's
but
right.
It's first.
That's right. It's
through
first
the light.
there. That's video through the light dafka. Beautiful. Beautiful mashal. So you therefore, built on this premise, nimsa, so it must be that it's rooted in, he uses the word symbolizing, but he means the opposite way, because the real truth is the spiritual reality. We have to train ourselves to see life that way. Helps us stay focused, to remember what's important. So it's got to be something so deep. Hashem's, so to speak, Hashem's hanhaga, the way Hashem thinks. It refers to a much deeper level of thinking. It's known that the human being is just the mashal, but the nimshal, which is the true truth, is in the upper realms. We find, again, this spiritual root in the higher realms, yad, right? The concept of a hand, which is the midah of chesed, that becomes the human hand, the regel, feet, the ayin, the eyes, all of these become physical experiences, but they're first spiritual truths. All of these, we can look at the human and we can see from him what the code is. The highest spiritual realities. It's the same thing with our head and our brain. It's the highest part of us. So it must be referring to the very high spiritual reality. With this understanding, hazikarein, memory, that we're saying is subconscious thought. It's got to be an incredibly lofty level of the spiritual realm. Because if thought, generally speaking, hints or is the manifested reality of a high level, so harisha zikarain, memory, which is even deeper, na'utz is bound up with kasher and connected the loftiest concepts. So in order to understand this properly, we're going to touch upon a concept that we spoke about already, I think in our shiur, but certainly he speaks about this in other svarim, like Yachid Baranenu. Now we're going to speak about something very, very, very foundational. The concept of interiority, inside, and exteriority, outside of the worlds and of the Jew. Listen to this.
Can we just...
Sure.
We haven't really maybe going to answer the question of what zikaron means from God's perspective.
Yeah.
Like, is he deliberately leaving that question unanswered because we can't really know the answer?
I think that he's taking a more generalized route. Because zikaron vis-a-vis Hashem would imply that there's past, present, and future, right? Because Hashem is above time. We think of memory as you're recalling something in the past. By Hashem, that doesn't exist. So he's taking a more general perspective that for us who do experience present and past, memory would refer to tapping in to a hidden realm and drawing it out into the revealed realm. Hey, thanks for coming, right?
We do have to zukim where Hashem talks about zikaron.
Zikaron, yeah. Hashem pakad esara, zacharti chesed u'rayich, and so on. So you'd have to say that it's referring to a pnimius machshava being revealed, but it doesn't work exactly the same way because Hashem doesn't have past and present and future. Mm-hmm. So that he's taking a more general route.
To us, to the world, it seems that it's now being remembered, but that basically that machshava was always there. It's just now become a gilur, just like a memory.
That's right.
Just like a memory, it was always there, and now it's been brought to the front. But it's only for us.
Something that's hidden.
It's like an illusion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to cope if we were living constantly in the, and there are people, unfortunately, who do.
Yeah.
They just can't cope with life as it's moving on.
Because there's
So just to put into in other words, what for the human being is recalling an experience of the past in the present. For Hashem, so to speak, and Hashem's hanhaga and his relationship with the world is bringing from the hidden realm out into the revealed realm, and that's an aspect of memory. Like Hashem pakad asara, it was finally time for the Yeshua that always existed to come into reality. That's the concept of memory. So he's gonna clarify that a little bit more now. Listen to the way he reads a Gemara in Brachas. Mamish, the way that he understands the depth of this Agada is pili play. Yadu'atz known she'Yisrael arukim bebechinas chitzayin yisu pnimius. Each and every Jew and everything in the world is split into outside and inside. Bechinas, in one aspect, it's called guf and neshama. Right? We have a body and we have a soul. Which one is the inside? The neshama. And the body is the outside. Right? We encounter people on the level of guf, but inside the guf is neshama. Hamushrashim, which are rooted, like we said, in the code, ba'olam hagalui u'ba'olam hanister, right? That reflected in the world, there's the way that we experience the world with all of its different physical elements, biological elements, and then there's a soul of the world, a spiritual realm, the realm of Yitzira, which is beyond Asiya, the realm of Bria, the realm of Atzilus, all these different layers of spirituality that exist beyond the layer of the world, that just like we can use a person's guf to get to know their neshama, if we're conscious Jews who are utilizing halacha and Judaism properly to train us how to be Moichin the Gadlus, which is how Yiddishkeit is supposed to be, expanded consciousness, we can learn how to engage with the physical experience of life to get to know the spiritual realities. That's what the whole purpose of Yiddishkeit is, right? To slowly train us how to be bigger, think deeper, experience life more deeply. The body is related to the revealed aspect of the worlds. But the soul is rooted in the realms of the hidden spiritual truth, the elevated light of Hashem. From the aspect of the level of the spiritual reality, we are bound up with the Creator, and will never ever become disconnected from Him. It's only from the level of the outside, on the physical element, we were sent to this world where there's work to do. To reveal our neshamas in the guf, to reveal the spiritual realm beyond the facade of a physical world. That's our whole avoda, by making choices and doing the right thing and overcoming ourselves and transcending, etc., and finding Hashem everywhere we look. Ikra avodas shel Yisrael hi bechinas hamshachas ha'ar me'ahelem el hagilui. This is the mission statement of the Jew. That encompasses everything. Every halacha, every aspect of Yiddishkeit is this. The job of a Jew in the physical world is to steadily draw down light from the hidden realm and reveal it in the physical realm. Shemamshichim is Oiri Yisbarach, to draw down Hashem's light, HaMeir, which shines, Bebechinas HaNeshama HaNesteres, in the hidden realm of their own souls, and to use the body, not that it should hide the soul, because it can. On the contrary, we use the body to reveal the soul in interaction with the physical world, through eating consciously, sleeping consciously, having conscious relationships, looking at the world in a deeper way, allowing ourselves to enter into a state of emunah, and so on and so forth. Reveals Hashem's light in the created world. And thereby we reveal the neshama of the world within the guf of the world. But what can happen to us in the experience of the guf, which is the present experience of our reality, even in our past and even in our future, in our state as human beings, meaning from the moment our neshama was born in a guf to the moment that our neshama will leave the guf, it's very possible to forget the true reality. What's the true reality?
Hashem.
Deeper. The true reality of us, that we're really a neshama. So from the standpoint, this is such a deep thing, from the standpoint of being human, there is a fundamental memory that can be tapped into at every single moment of the human experience, that will always be in the past vis-a-vis our present human experience, which will be when we were once a soul, bound up with Elokus.
How can that be a memory?
On a sub-spiritual level, right? How does our mind think? That if you just have a brain sitting in a can, floating in some liquid, it's not doing any thinking. It's the neshama that thinks. So on a sub-spiritual conscious level, as he's going to describe, the neshama has a glimmer of a memory of when it didn't have this clunky spacesuit we call the body, and it wasn't schlepping around this whole thing.
So if our neshama has the ability to remember, like in the spiritual realm or whatever, does that also mean that our other senses are able to operate? Like even though we don't have eyes, like our soul when we're in Gan Eden or whatever, can we still see?
On a spiritual level.
Yeah, but
that when it comes, it will be the same conceptually, right? Meaning, so even though it might not be seeing like we experience seeing, it will be some concept of what the eyes accomplish, some aspect of visual. So, right, because again, everything that exists in this world is the front end code. That's what muscle we're using, like an app, from higher level. So it might, do the numbers look the same? No, it's not. The numbers that become our WhatsApp feed don't look like the WhatsApp feed, but they're fundamentally different from the code that makes a banking app, right? So it's related in some way, right, with something else. So all of it is rooted in a higher place. See, he's saying like this, it's such a deep thing. Why is it so deep? I just have to. It's a very deep thing I'm trying to get across. So we're trying to learn. One second. Just don't want to lose this nakuda. How did we refer to memory in its spiritual root vis-a-vis Hashem? We said in a more general perspective, as Hashem doesn't have memories in the past. The inner truth, the inner dimension. So Mamela, it turns out that the fundamental collective memory of the human being is the inner dimension, is to remember the soul, which is really what the spiritual root of memory is in God, so to speak, which is the revelation of that which is hidden. So we also have this fundamental, universal, collective memory where at every given moment we can tap into the deeper reality that this body thing is just a present experience, right? And even though we had a body yesterday, so that was in the past, but taken collectively as our present form, which is the human being, there's a collective past vis-a-vis this present, and that was the deeper reality of the soul. Let's let him unfold this a bit more.
It's still a memory, because if you look about it, whatever,
It's
40,
a
30,
memory
40,
before the
50
memory.
years ago,
Sure.
we were one with Hashem. It's something in the past, but it's like
Nista
that.
Shabbat.
On that level, there's no time. I get it.
It's a Nista Shavanista because
Yes.
it's beyond a time.
It's beyond time,
zikaron.
and that's the true root of
beyond
zikaron,
time.
where there is no time. That's the point. Because in that place, it's beyond the illusion of time. So what is there? Deep, depth. That's the shiur
That's why we can't
zikaron.
access it, because we just freak out.
Well, hopefully we can access it
we
without
can, but
freaking
I'm
out.
saying our brain,
Yeah,
as
we
we
might
are
not
here,
know how to-
as we
might-
experience this daily life, we cannot recall a memory which was experienced without our senses as it is now.
Right. I wouldn't say, because that would be the code. I wouldn't say remembering what it was like, so to speak.
Oh,
That's beyond. But I would say remembering the truth of that reality. So it might not be, let's let him out, because there's still much more to do.
Can I just make a quick point?
Yeah.
We have psychologists, as you said. We might not have the tools, but all our memories, our experiences, not just when we were babies, our experiences in my previous life, and there is
There's
a
such
lot
a thing,
of that.
yeah, there's such a
and
thing.
there are people that have
Past
the
life
tools
regressions,
to
yeah.
be able to go so deep into me that I could remember what I was 300 years ago. It's a true Messias.
yeah.
In America, is big.
I'm curious.
Which means it's mamish within us. It's
Freaking me
it's
out,
in me.
Charlie.
But-
I'm curious to hear what methods you're speaking about, but I'll just say one tiny thing. There's a book written by somebody called Stan Grof. I'm getting to the whole thing now. It's called Realms of the Human Unconscious. And I'm not sure what you're referring to, but he did a lot of work using LSD, actually, before it was a party drug, in a therapeutic context. And in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, using psychedelics in a therapeutic context coming back and the controversial and so on. But he writes in his book something absolutely remarkable. He did thousands of hours of LSD therapy with people. And he sort of maps out what's called a cartology of human consciousness. To really talk about this properly would be a whole nother shiur. But basically, he identifies 5 realms, 5 layers of the human consciousness. If I'm remembering correctly, the first one is what we are experiencing right now. The second one is memories of our regular range of memories. The third one is memories that were dormant from our youth. The fourth one, listen to this. The fourth one, if I'm not mistaken, is the memory of being born. And the fifth one is memories of previous lives. And the way that he explains this, wild stuff on LSD, where people started speaking in languages that they didn't know fluently. There was one crazy story. I'm trying to remember exactly the nature of this story. Something to do, she had this vision of an army and of different people being hung on a specific date, and she knew her way. She was able afterwards to trace a map at some random place in Italy. She knew exactly where it was and exactly what the setting was, and she couldn't make heads or tails of it because she wasn't aware of what that might be referring to. And decades later, she wrote to him a letter saying that she had been having a conversation with one of her uncles who mentioned that they were direct descendants of these three people who were hung for some treasonous event at some point in this exact place in the way that she pulled it up. So, again, some people might say it's pseudoscience, some people say, I don't know, but it's definitely shy. It's definitely shy
very deep.
That it's super hidden. If we believe in Gulgulim, which again, there are those who were free to choose, there were those who, argued very strongly that there's no such thing in Yiddishkeit, but all the Mekubalim, obviously the Arizal wrote Shar Gulgulim, felt that it was MS. These are realities. But we're not even speaking about that. We're speaking again on a more klali level, just the general recalling of the spiritual reality. Let's go a little bit weiter.
How can you be cholik on Gulgulim if it's brought, I'm presuming if it's brought in Zohar a lot, then how can you just be cholik on it?
Because there are rayas in Nikla that there aren't Gilgulim. There are rayas, for example, what tefillah that we say that we should daven, that we should leave the world as we came into the world, b'li chet. Right, so if we talk about Gugulim, so then there is some aspect of Chet, and there are other Maimar Chazal. There's a bit of discussion back and forth. By the way, I hate to say it, and obviously Ruba de Ruba of Am Yisrael doesn't hold this way, but there are those that question the authenticity of the Zohar as well. Right? It's a huge topic, and a huge amount has been written about that. There were definitely tzaddikim that, so, etc. Right, but the general consensus of, so to speak, mainstream Yiddishkeit across the board in the Sephardic world certainly, but in the Ashkenazi world, from the Litvish to the Chassidus, everybody accepts that realm of Torah, including Gulgulim, But yeah, okay. So let's jump back, and I want to take you through this Gemara in Brachas. So he says like this: in our lived experience of a body, lowliest Hashem, we can forget. V'nituk v'kilkul. Are we up to here? Yeah. V'nituk v'kilkul, disconnect and distortion. But on the level of our soul, there's always direct recall. Because it's bound up with Hashem. And this is what Chazal really were trying to communicate to us in the following Gemara. There's a pasuk that says, "V'tomer tzion azavani Hashem." What's the rest of it? Something like that, right? V'tomer tzion azavani Hashem al kain v'Hashem shechachani. Right? You forsook me, you have forsaken me, and you've forgotten me. Amr Rish Lakish, so the Gemara says, Hainuhach, right? Why does it say it twice? You forsake me, or us, and then you forgot us. It's like the same thing. Says Rish Lakish, this is what the pasuk means. Amra Knesset Yisrael Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Knesset Yisrael, Am Yisrael, the collective soul of the Jewish nation, says in front of Hashem, Ribono Shel Olam, the master of the world. Adam noisi isha al ishta rishona. Person marries a wife and then marries a second wife, right? Meaning after divorce, marries again. Zochrei ma'aser rishona. He remembers the experience of the first relationship. But at azavtani, not only have you left me and, so to speak, married someone else, kiviyachol, v'shichachtani, but you've totally forgotten us. Amar la HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem responds, Biti, my dear daughter. Shneim also mazoles barasi barakia. I created 12 what's called mazoles, metaphysical constellations, right? In the rakia. I'll call mazel mazel, and upon each mazel barasi l'shloishim chayal. There are 30 soldiers. Obviously, this is all metaphoric and kabbalistic. I'll call chayal v'chayal, and what's that?
Chayil, probably chayil army.
Yeah.
Oh, shloishim.
Platoon.
Yeah? Oh, chayil. Okay. I'll call chayil v'chayil upon every one of those 30. What's the word you used? Platoon.
Legions.
Legion.
No,
because we're going to have to. We're about to encounter a lot of different words. But Rasi l'shleishim legion. Right? That's a legion.
So 30 armies, and every army has 30 legions.
Ve'al kol legion a legion barasi l'shleisha rahatun, like commanders. Ve'al kol rahatun v'rahatun barasi l'shleishim kartun, like a captain beyond them. Ve'al kol karton v'karton barasi l'shleishim gistra, like a military official beyond that. Ve'al kol gistra to lisi boy, and on them. Okay, well, that's not
smaller.
No, higher and higher and higher. It's going higher. Talisi by shloish me'as v'shishim v'chamisha alfei rivay koichavim kenegedim moisachama. I attached 365,000 Alfei ribay kochavim, 1,000 myriad stars, keneged and Maisachama, in accordance with each of the days of the solar calendar. Okay, so it's a massive, massive world out there. If we haven't noticed, we're keeping track, right? It's just, and it's interesting because now we know this visually. Then they didn't. They didn't have access to the Milky Way. They didn't understand how minuscule this tiny rock that has, by the way, molten fire, a couple of 1,000 miles down. Like, we have not, it's absolute, this is bizarre, okay? This that's happening now. We live on the face of a rock that's floating in the middle of nowhere. We can't understand how vast of space out there. This was Chazal's way of communicating what that might look like, to give people a little bit of a taste of what's out there. And Hashem says, "V'kulam loy barasi," and I created all of this, ela b'shvilcha, for you. Va'at amris azaftani v'shichachtani. And you say that I don't care for you, that I've forsaken you. It's all for you. Hatishkach isha ula, the pasuk says, can a woman forget her nursling child? Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu klum eshkach ulais elim upatre rachamim sheikravta lefane b'midbar oilais elim. Can I forget all the karbanos and everything that you brought in front of me and offered up to me in the midbar? So Amar lefanav. So then Am Yisrael, which is so emblematic and characteristic of our anxious Jewish consciousness. Listen to this. How do Am Yisrael respond? Not with like this great joy. So they say, "Oh my gosh, Ribbon Shalom, if you didn't forget us, so then I'm sure then you must remember also the Egel." Amar Allah. Hashem says, "Gam ila tishkachna." No. That I forgot. So then, so if you are remembering, forgetting, Sinai, right? Because someone set up the phone that it should record because it's about to die. I don't want to lose the rest of the recording. Shkoyach. Amr lefanav Ribono Shel Olam ha'il v'yeshichal v'nikisa kvedecha shema tishkach li ma'aseh Sinai. So maybe you forgot what this experience of our Sinai was. Amar la, the pasuk continues, v'anoichi lo eshkache. So gam eile, the word eile is a reference to eile lehacha Yisrael, right? The pasuk that refers to the Egel. Anoichi lo eshkache is Har Sinai, right? I didn't forget Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. Har Sinai Hashem doesn't forget. So what's the depth of this Gemara? An understanding that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, let's just finish. V'hainu da Amar Rebbe Lazar, Amar Rebbe Ishia, Mai dichsiv gam eile tishkachna, ze ma'aseh Egel. V'anoichi lo eshkachech, ze ma'aseh Sinai. So on a simple level, we read the Gemara, it sounds beautiful, there's a back and forth. But when you think in a theological way, it cannot be that this conversation means what it actually means. Why? Because there is no remembering by Hashem, and there is no forgetting by Hashem. So what's this back and forth? HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembers the karbanos, he doesn't remember the Egel. But he forgets the Egel, but he remembers Mount Torah. What's going on here? Hine Royim Anu, says the Heliger of Ruvain, we have to understand that Chazal are communicating to us as Soid HaShikcha B'chitzonius Ve'es HaZikaron B'pnimius. This is where we see in Chazal that by Hashem, forgetting is that which is on the surface, and remembering is the truth of the pnimius, of what's beyond the surface. Maisa egel hu chet. The egel was a sin. What does it mean, sin? It's a word. It's a meaningless word. The word sin means nothing, right? What? It's like translate chet, sin. Okay, translate sin, iniquity. Okay, translate iniquity. Like what do these words actually mean? What is a sin? What does this mean? What does chet mean in Hebrew?
Chet actually means missing.
To miss
something.
It's a
to
missed
deviate,
opportunity.
to miss the opportunity to connect. Right? That's what a chet is. Sin means nothing. Ma'aseh egel hu chet. Toitzar shalachitzayinis hapeguma means we were drawn after the external reality that's corrupted. So at some point or another, it's going to lead us in a wayward direction. Its job is to cover over, to make us conceal, to forget. But in contrast, Maisa Sinai,
We would
Matan
forget,
Torah,
or that it could be forgotten.
no, it made us forget. Right? It's on the realm of the external. So the external is not connected to the truth of the reality, which is neshama oriented. So we got drawn after the guf. We got drawn after, if you think about the Maaseh Egel on a very deep level, we wanted to corporealize God, right? We said it's not enough that God exists. We need an object to serve. And the Meshech Chachmei, take a look, it means that if they made the Egel in lieu of Moshe Rabbeinu, that means that they fundamentally misunderstood Moshe Rabbeinu too. They thought that he was God in this world. And so if he's not here, we have to make an idol, right?
To me, it sounds like he's saying, since the whole act is not the real us, for a second I got confused by the physicality. It's not the real me. It's a moment of madness in me that made me go out. And therefore, this moment of my madness, once I go back to my normal to my senses, that act that I went to Meshuggah for 10 years ago, I did something, is going to be forgotten. And that's why Hashem says, I've forgotten about it. That wasn't the real you.
That is what he's saying. That's exactly what he's saying. That's exactly. Lu'umasa, here's how he speaks it out. Maisa Sinai, Matan Torah, Anoichi Hashem Alekecha, that's Mushrush Be'imke HaPanimis. That's the reality. L'chein Lo'olam, again, if Zikaron means remembering the deeper reality, so then Lo'olam Yishachech. Right? It'll never go away. It's in our essence. We have an absolute bond with the Creator. Nothing could make this fade. Nothing could make this dim. You can't forget your hand or your foot. You can't forget it, even if you didn't look at your hand for a long time. It's you. It's on you. It is part of you. Right? The neshama can never, ever, ever forget, can never deviate from that reality, the reality of Matan Torah, which is embedded in it, in its essence. And so now we could understand what this means, memory. Right? We've learned that to remember means to access the hidden realm and to draw it out, to reveal it in the physical realm. Mehates moida, which is from the subconscious, el hamoida, to the conscious. Betat moida, in the subconscious, hadvarim einam ne'elamim. They're not hidden. Rak b'chitzonius, right? B'machshava hagluya, we can't access them. Sham alula shikha li'matzeh, so we forget. So how do we remember? Tap back into the subconscious where you never forgot. It was always there. Hazikari nu chibor bein hapnim u bein hachutz. Memory is a bridge, a channel between the hidden and the revealed. Chadira, it's a penetration, el imke hamachshava, to the deepest depths of our thinking, beroiv hanister, to the deep reality. Hadoyle, which draws chutza es masha atzur b'fnim, that which was locked in it, and memory draws it out. Kach gam beroiv haruchni, the same is true in the spiritual realm. Mitzad haguf shel Yisrael, our bodies, shikhas Hashem lowliest mitzuya, we can forget. We can forget the reality, the truth, the hidden realm. We can forget that the world has a deeper spiritual realm. We can forget that every person that we encounter is not just a body, but they have a soul. They are a soul. The true, deeper reality. So we can forget Hashem, we can forget who we really are, and we can deviate, we can become far from Hashem, we can turn our back on Hashem. That's on the guf. This will only ever be true for a Jew to do. That's a lot of rhyming words. This will only ever be true for a Jew to do on the external realm. But from the standpoint of the true reality of who you are, of who I am, Yisrael dvukim la'olam ba'Hashem, we're still as close to Hashem as ever. Kedushasecha Hashem, and the holiness of God, chakuka behem ba'ofen muchlat, is etched into our essence, b'lishim hester v'shikcha v'tishtosh, without any forgetting, without any hester, without any concealment. It's there. V'af sheklape chutz, and even though externally nira it appears sheyesh Yehudim sheshachos Hashem, it looks like there are some Jews out there who aren't living with this remembrance and have forgotten. Hine be'emes, the truth is bepnimius. On the deeper realm of who they are, they never forgot. They can never forget. Because the soul can never forget Hashem. It is a part of that experience. It's just not being accessed currently. But that doesn't mean that it's not them. It is the most them, not the least them. So the real part of them is as holy as ever, is as connected as ever. What they're challenged with is not being distant from Hashem. What they're challenged with is the body's experience of being distant from the ways of Hashem is preventing them access to what they really are, who they really are, what the true reality of nature is, what the true reality of their body is, which is that they're a soul. Just like a person can't forget himself, the soul cannot forget itself, which is the Creator. It's a part of Him. And it's etched into him, bound with him. And its whole essence is only ever just a spark from God's great light. Okay, we're going to stop here for tonight. I know we didn't get to the answer. The answer is the next two columns, but we're going to get to that as Hashem next week. Okay, so hold on tight. It's a bit of a cliffhanger, and somehow we'll survive the week until we get the full answer.